Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be continuing this research into the scripture citation index and all the different times that these particular terms show up in general conference. In this video, we're going to be looking at wipe away all tears, best days are, wonderful time, time to be alive, exciting time. Okay, so if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you end up liking it. Make sure to leave your thoughts and opinions and interpretations below, anything that you want to share. Also, make sure to share this with somebody because this is going to be a very optimistic one and it might make somebody's day just a little bit better. I really like this one, so check this out. Okay, so wipe away all tears. I got this phrase from a scripture, and the scripture is found in Revelation 21, verse 4. And of course, this is talking about the second coming in the millennium. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Thank goodness. And I can't wait till we get to that point. So we have that scripture, okay? And then over here, this is always, I should have done just shown you the whole thing, but it's the best days are ahead of us. Okay, so that's what this is referring to. Best days are ahead of us. And I made sure I checked in each instance, and that is what it's, the rest of the phrase. Wonderful time. I did this because um, this goes along with like wonderful time to be alive, but it's also what a wonderful time to be a member of the church and stuff like that. And then time to be alive, uh, before this you could put marvelous time to be alive, exciting time to be alive, terrific time to be alive. And then over here in this column I have exciting time. Okay, so this is what I found. Okay, starting with 1942. Okay, now as you can see, none of these seem to be very applicable in the 40s. In the 40s, when World War II is raging and then just getting over. And then we see our first instance of wipe away all tears in 1955. Okay, so already compared to the other terms that I've done videos about, this one's different. Because by now, there would have been citations and stuff, during some of these years. Okay, so let's keep going. All right, now we're to 1963, and there's still only one time that wipe away all tears or any of these terms are mentioned. Okay, now in 64. Now we have our second. 67, excuse me. Now notice how it's not until 1975. 1975. That we see any of these terms down here. And the one that we come across is exciting time. And like I said, this is usually exciting time to be alive or exciting time to be a member of the church, something along those lines. I checked each instance, okay? So all this white space for these four columns until 1975, okay? Now we have our first year where it's quoted twice, all tears. What is it? Wipe away all tears in 1976. Okay, we have one in 1980. Okay, now we have two over here for exciting time. Okay, so things are starting to get exciting after 1974. So we got one in 75. We have another one in 1986, two in 1986. And we're starting to see a little bit more of this scripture over here being referenced. Okay, now in 1992, we've got tears, the wipe away all tears, and now we have, what's this one? Okay, column AG, mentioned two times. Okay, wonderful time, which could be, again, either wonderful time to be alive or wonderful time to be a member of the church. Okay, and now we get to the late 90s, and now we have a pretty good cluster right here. Exciting, wonderful time, And then, sorry, I keep forgetting. Um, wonderful time, time to be alive, and exciting time. Okay. So, and this kind of makes sense because they probably have on their minds the coming, like the turning of the century, the turning of the millennium, the year 2000. That's the only way that I can really interpret this. I don't know. And it is exciting. I remember being excited in these years. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going into a new millennium. And that probably means that the second coming is going to be happening pretty soon. There were a lot of things going on at this time. This was around the time of President Hinckley doing the temples, like all the small temples, to get to 100. So temple work was like really kicking off, and I think this was also around the time that they were constructing the conference center in, across from Temple Square. So there was a lot going on in the church, and it was definitely an exciting time. But look at the contrast. Okay, look at the contrast between the late 90s and then as you go back in time, it just dwindles away. And there's no great time to be alive, wonderful time to be a member of the church, exciting time. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's go past the late 90s. Now we're in the early 2000s, and we're seeing a few more incidents of it. 2009 looks like that was a good year. Okay, we have all three of those, and then over here we have all tears wiped away in 2010. So we're starting to see more. Okay, and then in 2016 we have it referenced 3 times, and before that 2 times the all tears passed away, and we're starting to see more of this, and we see our first instance of best days. And remember, that's in reference to the best days are ahead of us. In each instance, it's that best days are ahead of us. So for the first time in General Conference, it's not until 2017 that anyone says the best days are ahead of us. Isn't that interesting? I find that interesting. I would have thought, if anything, going back in time, that back here, they'd be like, the best days are ahead of us, right? But they don't say it until 2017. 2017 is that all important year of the Revelation 12 sign, the Great American Eclipse. It was President Monson's last year as prophet, and he passed away immediately after New Year's, essentially the first within the first like week of the new year in 2018. It was the Hebrew year 5777. This was the year that we had Oumuamua, which was the first object from outside of our solar system that came in to the solar system, and that made news. And then look over here. Okay, now we're to the present day. Look how many times they're referencing this. Wipe away all tears. Like, this is a pretty solid clustering of times. Okay, there's only one year gap, and it's actually during 2017. But if it wasn't for that, you've got like a solid block of referencing that scripture. This is a millennial scripture. Wipe away all tears. Let's look at it again. Let's go back. You see big multi-year gaps in between the times that they're referenced. There aren't any other blocks. There's this time that is referenced twice in 1976, but aside from that, you don't have any back-to-back years until you get to 2015, and you have 2, and then 3. 3 is unprecedented. Before 2016, the most that this scripture had been referenced in a year in a talk is twice. So this was a record breaker. And then it happened again in 2019. Okay, and most recently in 2021. So it follows the pattern once again. At least this one is a little bit more. Okay, let's zoom out. Okay, that should be good. So as you can see, it's not until I'd say 1991 that things start getting quote unquote exciting or um, great time to be alive, wonderful time to be alive, all this like good time to be alive talk. That starts like all of a sudden in 1991. It's 1991 and then 1992, two instances, boom, boom. And then in 1997, and for the next few years, they're really happy about the time that they're living in and very excited. And then that continues on into this millennium. And then it's brought back up specifically in the year 2020, which we know was a really important year. Now, exciting time, it's a little bit different because there really isn't any clustering, but um, once you get to a certain point, it starts to kind of get somewhat steady, and you don't see it before 1975. Okay, so this is a phenomenon that's in more recent decades. Okay, this right here, this is for all intents and purposes a cluster, and then the best days are ahead. I mean, the only two times are within just a couple years of each other. So I think what we can take away from this and what I get out of this is that they started getting really excited around this point right here. Probably I'd say around the mid to late 90s. That's when things got exciting, according to their wording. And then with Wipe Away All Tears, they got really serious about that starting in 2015. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to see the big picture here. I mean, just look at all this white empty space down here. And then all these gaps between years. And then suddenly it just starts solidifying. And we'll have to see what things are like this year for this, the two conferences this year, and look at what happens next year. I'll save this spreadsheet and we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. But clearly, things have gotten exciting, like really exciting, since President Nelson, right? There was a lot of excitement about the millennium. There was excitement around 2010. And I think there's more to this actually, once we start looking at the big picture, because there's other things that I haven't really covered too much yet. But anyway, I'll just leave this with you. Let me know what you think. If you have a different interpretation, what are your thoughts about this? If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Make sure to share this with anyone that might find this interesting, and I'll talk to you guys later.